And here we go. It is a Pittsburgh Hockey Now live chat. The Penguins just dropped their schedule. I was getting a good look at it right before the chat. So I've got some disappointments and some, I guess, some happy moments coming up. So we're going to talk a lot about the trade rumors, the Penguins' role in all of this stirred talk, acquiring Matt Dumba, acquiring Artur Shilovs, and so on and so forth. Plus, of course, all of your questions. Do me a favor. We're back in the home studio. I am not getting any sort of warnings about the internet. So the software should be working. Should be. If the sound goes wonky, you let me know right away. And I'm calling the other cable company. I'm getting rid of this software, so on and so forth. Shelley Anderson, as we speak, is publishing the story on Pittsburgh Hockey Now about the Penguins' schedule. A couple of things I noticed immediately. I'm trying to find an image of it. Oh, I guess I do have to go to Sweden. Yeah, someone on Twitter is reminding me already that, I have to go to Sweden in November. And Shelley doesn't know how to put a picture in the story. Shelley, give me 1 second here. I have to... Here's what we're going to do. We're going to start off with I think the trade talks, because we've already been over the Dumba and the Shilov trades. I think we did a video on Shilov. I know we did a video on Dumba when I was up in Wellsboro on Friday. Regardless, I just did a radio hit with Edmonton Radio, and they were asking me all about what about this player? What about that player? So I think I'm going to start at the top, maybe to allay some fears, sort of what I wrote on Pittsburgh Hockey Now. Earlier this morning. Let me, here's the Penguins blog that I wrote. And I think a lot of you are getting really uptight about like what happens now with Harrison Brunick and to a lesser extent, Jack St. Ivany. I know even Mark Madden was saying, well, this means Brunick's probably headed back to the, to juniors. And listen, I'm not arguing with anybody because it could happen, right? If Brunick doesn't elbow his way into the lineup, if Dumba is really good, by the way, the Edmonton guys were saying Dumba as well. So maybe I can say both. But the point I'm going to make about Brunick and Dumba and that well overcrowded right side. I mean, the Penguins have, 7 righties now? When you count St. Ivany and Brunick and Alexiev and Karlsson and Letang and Connor Clifton, right? Yes, I think it absolutely means that we're going to talk. Actually, yes, this is the schedule, isn't it? Could you see what the text I sent to Shelley? I should stop sharing the screen when I do that. Oh boy, I don't have time to politely discuss things sometimes when I'm doing one of these shows and people ask me questions. So, Karlsson. Who says I'm a clown? Okay, well, James is going to get booted. There, you get put in timeout. That's how we're going to play this. Karlsson, I think at this point has to be traded. Now that we're settling into this video here, Karlsson has to be traded before the season, and Dubas can't be choosy about his return. I think at this point he has to say to Erik Karlsson, here's the deal. You can stay. We don't want you. You don't fit. You know you don't fit. So what's the point? Here are your couple of options. And Dubas really has to eat as much salary as possible. as well as maybe play salesman to get anything in return. This is where I've been on this trade probably since February, in so much as I don't think that GMs are going to want to risk multiple things. They don't want to risk the money that if Karlsson doesn't work, and they don't want to pay an asset to undergo that risk. Okay, good. Driz says no text seen. That's good, because I just kind of capital letters to Shelley, do it. There, I told on myself. But I think the important thing for Dubas is to clear that spot. You need Connor Clifton coming up to the second pairing, or him being in the press box. Either way, you need Harrison Brunick in the lineup. I think Jack St. Ivany deserves one more shot. You know, he had a good run at the end of 23-24. Terrible run to start 24-25. He was, and I'll talk a little bit about Jack St. Ivany here because I think it's relevant to the trade talk. St. Ivany was trying to play beyond his capabilities last season. Well, and what I mean by that, he was trying to skate with the puck. He was trying to stick handle into the neutral zone. He was trying to be a more complete all-round defenseman. That's not his game. He got a bit of a rude awakening, and it compounded with a bit of a loss of confidence because things weren't going well. So he began playing those very tight gaps at the blue line that I like because he's 6'3". He can reach. He's got the size and the physical attributes to play tight gaps there and not be like Jack Johnson, who played 20 feet back. However, he was doing it flat-footed, and it created this express lane right past him along the left wing wall, right to the Penguins goalies. It just was another issue by the Penguins defense, so that they had no choice but to send him back to the AHL. And by all accounts, by later January or mid-January or so, he had regained his confidence. Certainly by the end of the season, he was a beast again. By the time the AHL season ended and the playoffs rolled around, St. Ivany was back to doing those angry, gritty things that put him on the map in the first place, tossing guys from the crease. So I think it's incumbent upon the Penguins at this point to find a place for him, unless he gives it away in training camp and preseason. If I'm a GM and my AHL scouts call me and say, hey, St. Ivany's on waivers, grab him, and they tell him why. I mean, Kolyachonok and these other guys have been claimed on waivers. Defensemen have been getting claimed. So if you try to send St. Ivany through, well, guess what's going to happen? You're going to lose him. There's already a chance. I don't think they would lose Alexeyev, but heck, stranger things have happened. Oh, is the sound already getting wonky? Please tell me no. Okay, so okay, we're back. Yep, it is the internet. I see the warning icon now. They say the sound isn't horrible. Oh, this is... An old hotel should not have better sound than my home. Anywho. Okay, so we're going to bear through it. Keep me posted. We're going to just work through this here. And I promise you it will never happen again by next month. Or, yeah, hopefully by next week, we're going to have much better internet. And that's just the way it's going to be. So, as I was saying about St. Ivany, Karlsson, I think they have to trade Karlsson essentially at this point for whatever it takes. not giving up a first-round pick, obviously, within reason of whatever it takes. If you get nothing back, if you suffer that indignity for a few moments, it's very easy to look at the cameras or look at Dan Kingerski, and he raises his question in the press conference and asks, why didn't you get anything back? It should be easy for Kyle Dubas to look at us and say, it didn't work. We had to clear the space. It was more valuable for us to clear the space than it was to keep Erik Karlsson. That also goes into that sort of, I'm not going to use the T word. I know some of you want to tank for McKenna. But if Karlsson helps you win a few more games this season, there's no benefit to that. And that's why Karlsson has to go. I have lost all of my images. I had a bunch queued up. Oh, that is Ville Koivunen, as we're going to talk about Rickard Rakell. And we had that little blip, and I lost everything that I had loaded in for today's show. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Rickard Rakell now, because I think that's the second domino or shoe that has to drop. And the reason for that is a little bit along the same lines as that whole T word sort of thing. You do not want to go into the season as like a 10th overall team. You don't want to win too many games with guys who are not part of your future. And that's kind of where I'm at with this. You don't want to gut your team. That's tanking. That's too far. But you also don't want to be kind of in the middle, which is where the Penguins sort of sit. So if they can trade Rickard Rakell, drop the sky-high price. I'm not saying sell cheap. I'm saying sell. There's a huge middle ground there for Kyle Dubas. On Brian Rust, keep the sky-high price. On Rickard Rakell, maybe negotiate here a little bit, because that also creates space for young players. Right now, the Penguins have about, I think we did the math on Friday, 19 potential NHL forwards. 19. You can't give everybody a look in training camp and preseason with 19 guys. You want Tristan Brose to have the chance to make the NHL lineup. Heck, you want Avery Hayes to have a chance. You want Bill Zonin to make a charge and to feel like he's got a real shot at it. Will Horkoff won't be there. Heck, I guess I'll toss Ben Kindle into that mix too. He was the 11th overall pick after all, even though he had kind of a rough development camp, at least the scrimmage and development camp. You want him coming to training camp thinking, hey, I have a chance to play in the NHL this season. But if you have the top 6 set, actually, if you've got basically the top 9 set, you're kind of doing a disservice to that next era and that next phase. When I don't think Tommy Novak is long-term Penguins material. Maybe I'm wrong. A center who has less than 10 hits in a season certainly concerns me. But, and then you've got these other veterans of Kevin Hayes and Nola Chari and so on and so forth. I think it's incumbent upon Dubas to now begin clearing the brush. Lose a few trades, quite frankly. Because losing a few trades will mean winning with the roster when you get to put some of these younger players into the lineup. I'm going to work backwards here because I see Driz has a comment about Rickard Rakell. With his salary and production, what's the floor and ceiling on a trade? Same for Karlsson. How much do you retain and what do you get in return? All right. Let's talk about Rakell first. And what's the floor? What's the ceiling? Obviously, Dubas and 31 other GMs are having a disagreement on that very question. So I can't definitively tell you. I can tell you what I think the market should be based on other trades, but we're also seeing that there were some premium trades and then other teams had to settle. I think that's why Brock Besser went back to Vancouver. Quite frankly, the market has been lukewarm at best, tepid really, on a lot of these players. And I would kind of put Rakell in this, maybe the same stratosphere as Brock Besser. And we know the trade market wasn't great for him. So yes, you want a first-round pick for a guy who scored 35 goals with 70 points, a guy with his slick hands and just a bit of an underrated physicality who can make your number one center better. Yeah, you want a first-round pick and a second asset. If not a young NHL player, then certainly a young player soon to be ready for the NHL. That's where I think the market should be. Now, what happens if Dubas and I are wrong, right? Then I think you start asking for a young player and a second, or just a really good young player. I'm not talking like a Nick Robertson sort of young player that has had a chance and needs a second chance. Or even a Maverick Bork wouldn't do it as a one-on-one trade for me. Now, if you talk a one and a Maverick Bork, okay, now I'm listening, right? Or one of the Buffalo Sabres AHL centers. And, let's be honest, Buffalo has not been very good. So maybe you take a second-round pick, a former first and a future second-round pick. That would certainly, I think, scratch my itch. But again, if Dubas loses any of these trades, I'm giving you my word right now. Here, right hand to God, right hand to you. I'm not going to criticize unless there isn't a secondary benefit of opening a roster spot. With Rakell, there certainly would be. All right. Are we kind of in agreement on that? I see no more complaints on the sound. Did it stabilize and fix itself? Hopefully. Okay, so that's a little bit of Rickard Rakell. Now, where is Erik Karlsson? Let me grab my Erik Karlsson photo that I very quickly lost. I had a couple cool Carl photos. This is my favorite one. There's just a depth to it, right? I'm not sure if that's the Associated Press or Icon Sportswire where we got that for Pittsburgh Hockey Now. It has like a 4K look to it, doesn't it? With Erik Karlsson, I will tell you the exact same thing that I just told Edmonton, Kevin Carius, sports radio up there. Trade him. Whatever you get, eat $2.5 million. If you get something back, eat $5 million. But you have to make the deal. I don't think there's a floor here. As long as the Penguins aren't spending valuable assets to get this deal done, do it. Again, won't criticize Dubas whatsoever if he basically gets a bag of peanuts. He tried. Mikael Granlund wasn't working in Pittsburgh. I know there's going to be a lot of rear view mirror driving. The Penguins gave up a first and second round pick and Mikael Granlund to get Karlsson, and they got nothing in return. Listen, I'm preparing you for that tweet right now. There's going to be a bunch of those people who just, I think they get notoriety, popularity, power, noticed by just always being against, being negative, what have you. They're going to be out in full force. That highway is going to be the Parkway East at 4 o'clock on Friday. I'm going to skip past it because I don't really feel like that argument, to be honest. the trade really was, I don't even know how to value what the Penguins gave up for Karlsson. It was so creative. Yes, there was a first and second round pick, but they also shed 3 salaries they didn't want. Jeff Petrie, Jan Ruda, Mikhail Granlund. So there was a lot of money going out the door as well. So those draft picks sort of compensated for that, to Karlsson. And if you can untangle that, you are certainly better than I am. All right, let's go to the top here for the questions. Simple question, Driz asks, what's an ideal rest of the summer look like? ID, trades, buyouts. You are big on saying, did I report it? But it seems like something is brewing in regards to Karlsson and maybe Jarry. No. That's not a honey mustard question. That's asking me to predict the future. And that's certainly, that's fair game, right? But if you're asking me, have I heard anything on Tristan Jarry? That becomes the honey mustard question. First of all, the Penguins don't have another buyout window coming. So there's no buyouts. The second buyout window is dependent upon having a case go to arbitration. Since the Penguins don't have any players who filed for arbitration, they have no second buyout window. You can see the light here in the room. I guess, The sun is peeking through the clouds right above my house as the thunder goes. I guess maybe I'll have to close the blinds here shortly. But you get what I'm saying. There's no buyouts. In terms of trades, Jeff Merrick had mentioned he thought the Sheloff's acquisition affected Tristan Jarry. And he was talking about a Jarry trade. Listen, I'm not putting down anybody for that opinion. I can see how somebody would come to it. Here is what I am seeing on all of that. Sheloff's had an .861 save percentage in 10 NHL games last season. Let's not jump to conclusions here. Sheloff's is acquired because A, he's a young goalie with potential. B, the Penguins have a very iffy goaltending tandem. The very iffy part, Jarry is iffy, but you at least know he's an NHL goaltender, at worst of mediocre quality. At best, he regains the form that had him in the running for the Jennings Trophy in 23. Blomqvist is really the unknown here. Is he the good goalie you've been waiting for? Or is he the guy who got lit up at midseason with a bevy of soft goals, bad goaltending, poor fundamentals and angles, and he really just sort of melted? He completely imploded. So in regards to Jarry, I do not see a Jarry trade happening this summer unless one of those teams, I know Merrick mentioned Edmonton, and that's, he's not the first person to do that. It does make sense. Look, it makes a lot of sense. I see a Jarry trade more likely at mid-season when you know more about Blomqvist and Sheloff's and know more about Sergei Murashov. So holster that, but keep some bullets in the gun. Regarding, Karlsson, I definitely think the Dumba trade and all the signings, all these right-handed defensemen, how can you keep everybody? And Karlsson is the obvious sort of one. Let me close the blinds here so I'm not like Two-Face. That's a little better. Now we're dark, but we're going to have to deal with it. Okay, so Crosby trade rumors gone wild. Yeah, they're not going to stop. I'm going to shrug until there's something, right? I think Penguins fans would not begrudge Sidney Crosby. In fact, I know a lot of you want to see him win in a very altruistic manner. Yeah, some people want to see Crosby go win somewhere else so they can have their tear it down rebuild. That's sort of a selfish motivation, right? I know a lot of other Penguins fans really want to go see Sid lift a cup because he's meant so much to you. You want to see him have that moment. I get it. I understand. Don't forget, there are the Olympics coming up in 2026. So Sid is going to have Team Canada and that gold medal chase. Maybe that scratches the itch for the playoffs and the Stanley Cup at least a little bit, right? Gable Fisk says, oh, I didn't even realize. Yeah. So Gino's final game is a random Tuesday night in St. Louis. Well, I guess I have to go to St. Louis, don't I? I will. I'll tell you what. If any of you want some hotel recommendations for some of these cities you want to go on a road trip, I will happily. Listen, I shop hard for my deals. I don't stay at the Marriott, at the Hilton, unless it's a good value. In Denver, I often do. For whatever reason, downtown Denver hotels, the luxury hotels are the same price as like the Airbnb or the 2 stars. Well, if I'm going to spend $150 on crap, I'm going to spend $160 on the good stuff. I will happily let you know where to stay. I did find one great. I was really happy with my spot in St. Louis. It was just outside the city, right on the metro line. Took me right to the arena and right back to the hotel. I'm not going to give it away so I can book it quickly. That'll be maybe the second hotel I book as soon as we finish up this show. Let's see here. Let's go to Cal 66. Dubas says the goal is to win. Not just make the playoffs. The path is through trading Rust, Rax, and Karlsson. What would a return look like? Well, not necessarily. Cal, I need you to read the story I did on Tuesday. Why Dubas can't tank, but also why he doesn't go for it either. There is a big chasm right in the middle there. You need guardrails. Look at Detroit in their heyday, when they were making the playoffs every year. How many young players they plugged and played who became their best versions? Of those, Henrik Zetterberg was what, a 7th-round draft pick? He was the one who was a 7th-rounder, right? Or certainly a later draft pick. And there were so many of those guys who got to be their best versions because they were plugged into a good environment. Dallas is now going through the same thing where they're able to draft later in the first round, but because they're keeping such a good team, and I mean, clearly they're drafting well enough too, but they're plugging these guys in like Logan Stankoven and Marchment and Heiskanen even. And Thomas Harley, they're able to plug these guys in because those guys are coming into a defined role in a good situation, good environment. Now, the Penguins can't build a winning team to plug these guys into. That ship sailed 5 years ago. What they can do is make sure that there's a good situation and a good environment. You do not want these guys coming up and playing games in which they don't truly believe they have a chance to win. You don't want them watching Sidney Crosby deal with the misery of losing every night, not feeling competitive. That is a stench. Once it gets on you, it's tough to get rid of. One steam cleaning doesn't take care of the bill, okay? Ottawa. Think of how many young players have come through Ottawa, and it's just taken forever because they didn't have any guardrails in place. A bunch of young players, talented, no guardrails, no situation, no culture. Buffalo has been stuck in this muck and mire for 15 years. no guardrails, no system, no culture to plug these myriad of young guys into. Edmonton went through that for a decade. Edmonton, how many first overall picks did Edmonton have who completely flamed out? I mean, look, Nugent Hopkins was thought to be a flame out for quite a while until Connor McDavid. You got a generational player, one of the 5 or 6 best players all time. That's what it took for Edmonton. And even then, it still took 8 years to get good because all those great players that they drafted completely just, washed away like sand on a high tide. So you need to keep this is why I think you need to keep Rust unless somebody pays that sky-high price. Rakell, not as much. I think I made my point, right? Elijah asks a pretty good question here. How many teams do I think Erik Karlsson would possibly waive his no-trade clause for? 5 or under? There's 2 answers here, Elijah. Publicly, it's, there's a few teams. Karlsson undoubtedly has a short list of teams that he would want to go to. Dubas probably has a much longer list because Dubas would benefit by the trade, right? So I think the conversation with Karlsson goes like this. Erik, sure, you might not want to go to Carolina or Edmonton or wherever, or New Jersey, or whoever might have you, right? You might not want to go there. But there's 2 things. 1, you have a chance to win. And 2, you won't lose. Those are your options. Those are the teams that want you. We can't use you. So do you want Team X or Team Y? I tend to think the teams for whom Karlsson would waive his list are under 5 until you have that really hard conversation. We tried. This was the best we could get. Those teams you want, not interested. I think that's how the conversation would have to go. I've had a few of those conversations running this company. Here's what you wanted. Here's what's available. And then you listen because they always get mad and push back. And, well, you didn't do this or you didn't do that. And you're like, once again, we tried. Here are your options. And generally speaking, I think most people, once they get over the emotional part of it, accept the reality. Phoenix says, keep Rust and Rax and trade Malkin and Letang. Okay. Let's go to Alex. Has Karlsson said anything publicly about the trade rumors? Come on, Alex. I was the guy who started who asked him personally in January and wrote the story up. Yeah. Come on. He hasn't said anything this summer. He's back in Sweden, so on and so forth. But come on. Yeah. He's talked about it. And it's a business. He wants to win. Period. He's got, a couple of years left on this contract. After that, it'll be 37. Guys who play like him, when the hands begin to go, you begin to lose a half step, his value is going to go through the floor. He might not know that, but his agent does. Kyle Dubas does. Let's go to back to Cal here. Cal says autocorrect. The Karlstrom was an autocorrect. He meant Karlsson, and you watch PHN and Dan all the time. Hey, I appreciate you, Kyle. Autocorrect got my story yesterday. That tightrope tanking story. I don't know what happened. Someone called me out on it, and I didn't see it until this morning. My first paragraph was butchered. Whether it was like the little AI editor that I used to double check the everything or whatnot. It just butchered my first paragraph, so I apologize. It does happen. I don't know what AI is thinking sometimes. Gary says, I do the best breakdowns of all things Penguins. Hey, Gary, I appreciate you. Let's go to Frank Santoro. Do you remember the old days when a cell phone near a cable box would make the cable box chirp? I wonder if the phone making the computer sound staticky. No, we tried everything last week. We changed microphones midstream. We unplugged everything. It is the internet, or the software and the internet. Okay, we already got to that question. Okay, now we're getting into the new questions. Chicken Ala King, kind of going off of my comments regarding training camp. Is Ben Kindle really that underwhelming? That's a bigger answer, Chicken Ala King. He was underwhelming in the scrimmage. He was trying things that he couldn't pull off. Stick handling, barging into the zone. Guys could keep up with him in the development camp. So he got an education. There's no question about it. He needs to improve his skating. He needs to get a little stronger on the puck. Those things are fixable, I think. I mean, it's not like he was Sam Poulin, who was a raw project, who needed to redo his skating. Kindle just needs to get a little faster and a bit stronger. I'm told, I mean, obviously, I haven't seen him play any games. I didn't go to the WHL last year. So I'm limited to what I saw in camp. But he looked like a guy trying a little too hard. He had a brutal couple of days. And we'll leave it at that, right? Okay, Scott says the sound is back and good. Let's go to Jim here. Jim Stripsky, frequent commenter on PHN and my X account. Can Dumba resurrect his game, or Dumba? I guess both are correct. Resurrect his game to make him valuable at the trade deadline should he go to the AHL if he blocks Brunick? Yeah, I think, listen, I'm just telling you my 2 cents here. I think it behooves the Penguins to have Brunick in the lineup. And I think Tom Kostopoulos, director of player development, tipped the Penguins' hand a little bit on this when he said, yeah, I probably think that Brunick has done all he can do in junior hockey. So there's that, right? It's incumbent upon Dumba to win a job in training camp. I don't think anything more should be promised or asked for or expected, quite frankly. If Dumba is good, then you ride it and you do have a trade chip because right-handed defensemen are valuable. If you're not seeing what you want and Brunick earns a spot, then Brunick gets it. I think that's where the Penguins are. I mean, they got what they wanted out of that Matt Dumba trade. They got the second-round pick. That's all they really wanted. So, if they can resurrect Dumba, then they do probably get another second-round pick or even a young player maybe. Let's see. People texting me, blah, blah, blah. Let's see here. Josh Steele. Heard something floated out there about a possible Karlsson for Morgan Riley deal. Thoughts? Yeah. If Toronto was willing to do that trade, I think Dubas might send Air Force One to pick him up. I saw that same thing. I don't know what people are thinking. That's a there's no way in hell Toronto does that. So no. My thoughts are that's a wonderful internet barstool thing, but barstool chat, but no, not real. Let's see here. How much have you looked deep into the first 5 of the 26 draft? I haven't at all. I do know Elliot Friedman said some scouts are already talking about the second overall pick being kind of on par with Gavin McKenna, kind of an Ovechkin-Malkin sort of thing, which that would certainly bode well for the Penguins, wouldn't it? Alex Scanderall says, I believe this with my whole heart. Actually, Alex, put a W on that hole. Otherwise, you've got a hole in your heart, you say. It will be Sheloff's Blomqvist on opening night. Listen, stranger things have happened. At this point, I'm not ruling out anything that Kyle Dubas would do. Is Jarry really an upgrade on Stuart Skinner? Yes. Yeah. I listen. I was never as down on Jarry as fans were. I think that's probably an interesting little tidbit. Fans always sort of accelerate and thus multiply or compound an opinion. Jarry was in the tank in the middle of last season. No question about it. Even I wrote, I think, a day, 2 days before they waived him, that it was time to waive him. However, don't forget that this was a guy, Jarry and Sidney Crosby kept the Penguins in the playoff race in 23-24. So yeah, Jarry is a bit inconsistent. I think he got a good comeuppance last season. But yes, he talent-wise, performance-wise, he's better than Stuart Skinner. Voltage says, I think we are in tank mode. I think it makes sense to hold Jarry and maybe flip him if he's performing better, and depending on the other goalie's progression. I think that's exactly right. As Murashov, they've got 3 goalies now in line behind Jarry. In any order you want to put them, Murashov, Blomqvist, Sheloffs. So as soon as 2 of those are ready, you're absolutely looking to move Jarry if you can get an asset. However, don't overlook this. Maybe, just maybe, Kyle Dubas learned the lesson of Jim Rutherford in 2017. And by that, I mean people were offering the farm for Matt Murray. If Sheloffs is banging on the door and Blomqvist is banging on the door, maybe, just maybe, one of those guys, if you have decisions to make, one of the young goaltenders brings you more in return. Don't overlook that possibility too. Paul says, well, 50-50 on Yoel. D was horrendous. Yeah, it was all season, Paul. I'm just telling you that Blomqvist was particularly bad. He was struggling. When the defense is bad, you're going to give up some goals, but you can't be giving up the soft goals, and you can't be off your angles, and you can't kind of, I don't want to say meltdown, but it was pretty close to a meltdown. Alex says, I heard Toronto needs a winger. They absolutely do. Hello, Rickard, Rakell. Absolutely. I don't understand why this doesn't have more traction on the rumor rags and everything. I think Rakell is perfect for Toronto. Absolutely. Let's go back to Cal here. I'm a bit surprised we have not heard any rumors of both Rakell and Rust packaged to one team. That would be a power move. I don't think one team could give the Penguins as much as 2 separate trades. That's why you haven't heard those package deals or talk show fodder. You never see package deals in real life. Rarely do. Okay, I should say never, but rarely do you see package deals. Let's see here. Let's go to back to Driz. I'm okay with Crosby going elsewhere. Would make sense if it would happen at the trade deadline next year. Same can be said for Malkin this year. Guys, step back, take a look at the big picture. If Malkin's retiring, he's not going to agree to a trade. He's not going to play out his last couple of months in Winnipeg or New York or Lord knows where. He's come this far. He's going to cross the finish line with the Penguins. Same, and Crosby isn't leaving the Penguins. He's certainly not leaving the Penguins in the final year of Evgeny Malkin's career, if it is indeed the final year. As we reported, I guess about a month ago now, contrary to some other reports, we got it from the inside the Penguins, pretty good sources, and people close to Evgeny Malkin, who really were a little bit upset with the other reports, that nothing has been decided. And then Kyle Dubas came out at the draft and said, yep, listen, nothing has been decided. Kyle actually basically read our story and repeated it word for word, that after they saw the reports, Kyle picked up the phone and called Malkin's people and said, hey, not true. We haven't decided. We're not offering Evgeny a contract. And Evgeny's people said, hey, not true. We haven't decided if we're retiring or not. So they said, okay, good. They've agreed to meet during the Olympic break to assess everything, and then again at the end of the season. And that's really all there is to that story. I think Malkin and Dubas and you and I will know the score by the first conversation in February. You're going to know if Evgeny Malkin has more in the tank. You're going to know if he should step away or, if he could go one more year. JR says, shopping for cheap hotels. How many times have you run into bed bugs? Oh, man. I have not. I mean, if you follow me on Twitter, you know I got a pretty rotten hotel in Seattle a couple of years ago at the airport. There was only one left available. And literally there was a sign hanging above the, was it a 6 or an 8? I don't remember which brand name it was. There was a sign hanging over the lobby door there, where you check in. Absolutely no refunds after 15 minutes. It was that bad. I posted pictures, and yeah, there were no bed bugs in that place because not even the bed bugs would stay there. Otherwise, the only other really bad place I was really unhappy with was in Vancouver this past year. I just needed a place for 12 hours, literally 12 hours. And it was this house on booking.com. I'm like, okay. It had a private bathroom and everything. So I'm like, all right. It was like a border house, just a bunch of backpackers staying there, and everything was really beat to hell. All the furniture was mismatched, and, the bed was, springy and old. And I was like, okay. But it lasted me 12 hours, right? Although I did have to go find an ATM because she wanted cash instead. I was like, come on. So I had to walk like a mile down into downtown Vancouver, get cash, go back up and pay. It was like $200 too, which was, Vancouver hotel prices are absolutely insane. But no, the public transportation in Seattle is what gave me the staph infection. That took a year to diagnose and finally cure. That was fun. Let's see here. Dan Gable Fiss asks, do any of these Canadian media outlets who are oh so sure that Sid is going to be traded ever ask you to be on their shows? Yeah, I just finished up Edmonton. We were talking about that. They were dismissing it in Edmonton. I have not done a Montreal radio show in quite a while. Every now and then I'll do Sportsnet in Toronto too. But no, most of the people putting forth the Sidney Crosby will be traded are analysts on Twitter or X. They're not radio shows or even legacy media outlets. They're people on social media or offhanded comments on TV is really all it comes down to. Brian says tanking does not guarantee you win the cup eventually. That's what I'm trying to tell y'all. Look at Florida. Until Matthew Tkachuk won his first Stanley Cup, until Florida kind of became a juggernaut there, was Matthew Tkachuk a superstar? Not really. He was an all-star winger that everyone wanted on their team, but he wasn't a superstar. Is Sasha Barkov a superstar? No, not really. Aaron Ekblad, no. And go down the list, and Florida is deep. I would say Florida is deep very much in the same way that the LA Kings were deep when they won a couple of Stanley Cups. What was it, 12 and 14? Or was it 11 and 13? They all sort of run together because Chicago won 3, 2010. Who was in the middle there? Because, yeah, LA and Chicago won like 5 straight Stanley Cups between the two of them. But anyway, yeah, beginning in 2010. Chicago, star power. Kane and Taves, LA, depth. It can be done both ways. And if you try to play to the draft to get a superstar, we talked about Edmonton earlier. Think of how many Nail Yakupovs. Taylor Hall was thought to be a washout. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins thought to be a washout. Who else am I missing that they had like a first crack at? Or even, I hate to say his name, Jesse Puljujärvi was what, 6th? So, yeah, there's too much luck involved with the draft lottery and draft years. There's just too much luck involved to strip it all down and hope the draft saves you. That's how you become Buffalo, wandering in the abyss for 13 years. Alex comes back here with all of the picks we had in this year's draft. At least 1 to 2 are able to perform well, not top 6, but score and put up points. It's like shooting a machine gun with your eyes closed. Statistically speaking, Alex, you are correct. There's going to be a flop or two. They had what? In the first 4 rounds, 3 in the 4th round, 1 in the 3rd, 1 in the 2nd, and 3 in the 1st round. So that's 8. You'd like to think all of your first rounders hit, but the statistics say at least 1 of the 3 is going to well underperform expectations. Second round pick, you're talking a 10% chance to make an impact. So, yeah, but then you never know when your 4th round goalie becomes a stud. Yeah, it's going to be I'm looking forward to watching these guys progress and grow and so on and so forth. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Not at the expense of NHL coverage, but I'll certainly be keeping a greater eye than I have. Frank says, I think Ottawa is finally going to turn it around. Yeah, they already have. Ottawa is going to be a contender this year. No doubt about it in my mind. They're in a stacked division. I mean, they have to get past Florida and Toronto. Not exactly easy, right? Heaven forbid if Buffalo ever figures it out. Montreal is on the come here, so yeah, but Ottawa has turned it around. They're going to be very competitive. It's just it's going to come down to a couple bounces in the postseason for them. Let's see here. Big Joe. Do you think next year? Oh, do I think next year these conversations will be happening for DuPont? Or do you think it'll be closer to win now mode with all the cash they have to spend? I'm going to interpret that there, Big Joe. You're kind of speaking like the other Big Joe, former president, huh? I think you mean Dubas, not DuPont. So you're asking if next summer you're going to be in the same situation, we're going to be having the same conversations, and Dubas will be having the same conversations about moving closer to win mode. Yeah, this is not going to be a one-off season rebuild. You're not going to get there. So no. Don't expect that. Don't get mad if next season the Penguins are still talking rebuild and they're still signing free agents to 1 or 2 year deals next year. Now, in 2 years from now, If things haven't started on the upswing, then you start to pound on the table a little bit, say, hey, what's going on here? What's happening? Hey, Peter, what's happening? Hey, about those TPS reports. Yeah. Let's see here. Dan, is it really hard in a cap league to at least be decent every few years? I'm specifically speaking about Buffalo and to a lesser extent, Chicago and Detroit. This is what Kyle Dubas warned about a year ago. Okay? Full stop. This is why he didn't tear it down to the studs like everybody wanted to. His phrase that I've stolen and I've used because I feel like it's very appropriate is that's when you get stuck in the abyss, when you tear it down, because it takes so long to add enough good players to be competitive that by the time the first wave of players you've put in are ready, first of all, they develop bad habits and they may not have reached their full potential, but now they're looking to free agency. The second wave behind them, you're going to have your hits and your misses, and you're kind of like you're constantly stuck in that abyss, where as soon as your next wave is ready, your first wave is leaving you because they don't want to go through this anymore. I mean, that's been Buffalo's situation. And that was a good bit of, Detroit is interesting because they held on. They held on and they held on and they held on. Pavel Datsyuk and Henrik Zetterberg were nothing close to what Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin and Chris Letang are right now. So from that standpoint, it's an unfair comparison. But from the standpoint of still trying to make the playoffs in 2016 with those guys, Detroit kicked the can down the road so long that they had to start from behind square one. Do I think it's hard? Yeah. I mean, the draft is so hit and miss. And even in the draft, the selections are hit and miss. So you could have a good draft. You could look at, I hate to use his name a second time in this, but it's germane to the conversation. You're Edmonton. You're building. You look at this 6'5" monster from Finland, Sweden. Jesse Puljujärvi, and you're like, that's my power forward. Yes, we're going to take him. And it all goes sideways for whatever reason. That happens 50% of the time. Well, the top 10 is more like 30% of the time, but it still happens a lot. So, yeah, I think it is hard. I think you need a little bit of luck to rebuild. There's just no two ways about it. Let's see. Alex goes, thoughts on Melvin Fernstrom. Alex, wait, I guess I didn't publish my second Penguins prospect story. I was about to say, Alex, read the prospects. I didn't publish it yet. It is written. I will publish that this afternoon, not long after this live chat. I do go in depth on Fernstrom. He's raw, and there's a lot he has to work on. I do not think he is to the point where you should start putting him on your NHL calendar in a couple of years. He's got a long way to go. Whenever a guy has to work on skating as much as he does and doesn't have enough other attributes for the North American game, he can get by in the Swedish game because of the bigger ice surface. He can find more space in the slot and use that good shot of his without great skating. That same space, A, doesn't exist in North American hockey. B, if it does, it's here and gone. You have to get there quickly. That half step, that step makes all of the difference. So Fernstrom to me was, like I said, don't put him on your calendar just yet. Is it fair to say Kyle Dubas simply wasn't interested in drafting Victor Eklund, given that he passed multiple times? Yeah, I guess technically he passed with number 12 too. He thought trading down was more valuable than taking Eklund. I thought about asking him at the draft about passing on Eklund. I thought about it, but then I also remembered I've made that mistake in the past, and no team, no GM, no scout is going to comment on a player who's now been taken by another team. Or at least they're not going to honestly tell you, well, we just didn't project him to be a 25-goal scorer like the Islanders did. They're not going to tell you that. So I think it is fair to say that Dubas didn't value Eklund as much as he did Ben Kindle. For whatever it's worth, right? The Anaheim Rangers might be good this year. Speaking of teams in the abyss, right? Hey, whatever works. If one team has to sell off half their players and you can profit by taking them, do it. Let's go to Link here. Is Tanner Howe going to be ready for training camp? To be determined. His schedule sort of lines up, but will he fully be ready? That's a really good question. And I don't think we'll know until closer to that time. It would be nice, wouldn't it? Sorry, I'm losing my voice. It would be nice to see Tanner Howe with a full go, full gallop, full giddy up, full physical. Let's see what he's got. He hasn't played much hockey in the last 2 years, really. I mean, 2 serious injuries in consecutive years. So that's a problem for the Penguins. He is also on the top 25 Penguins prospects list too, but he is not in that 16 to 20 range. Frank asks, is the trade market lukewarm generally because of extra cap space all of the teams are getting? That's certainly a part of it. Teams are less motivated. They don't have the urgency to get rid of some players, as that's the situation's been over the last 4 years of the flat cap. So if they can keep their guy and keep the young guy, well, yeah, that's why teams are holding on. No question about it. Let's go to Paul here. I've been hearing from Canadian media that Lemieux and his crew was interested in buying back the Pens. Well, yes. We confirmed that they had real interest about a month ago. And I think Josh Yohe did a story this morning, saying they're really interested. I'm curious. I'm a little skeptical. I mean, the team is going to cost close to $2 billion. Ron Burkle is worth $3 billion. Mario, by internet reports, is worth about $300 million. I don't understand why they would want so badly to get back in. I don't. Mario is going to be 60. That guy did his tours of duty, and he came back for more. I don't doubt their sincerity. I do wonder why in the world Ron Burkle would want to risk most of his fortune on doing this. I wonder why Mario would put basically his life savings back into this. It seems to me it's actually a shame. It is a crying shame that Mario and FSG had their falling out, because FSG has admitted, I mean, they held a meeting with the beat writers, me included, in the back offices in mid-season when there were some rumblings about FSG and finances and so on and so forth. So, first of all, in terms of sourcing, I think there's talk outside of FSG. I think there's a couple of people talking about FSG wanting out of hockey, much more so than FSG is talking about getting out of hockey. That's what I can take from the big picture. But they had a little conference table chat with a handful of us, and it was for the alternate governor, Chris Werner, or I'm sorry, Teddy Werner, to basically say, listen, we're not selling. And they went through the plans of the Hill District and the music venue they want to put in and all of the stuff they're going to be doing and are doing. Yeah, it'd be tough to just walk away midstream from all of that, wouldn't it? Especially at a smaller profit. I mean, if they can get $2 billion, they'll have doubled their money. That's great, but I've got to think they've outlaid a good bit of money in real estate investment. And if you sell, I guess it is let's call it $1 billion profit, but I'm sure they've had to outlay a good bit of money to get construction and development and all of that sort of going. And they've probably lost a bit of money on the team the last couple of years without the playoffs. So let's just maybe say it's a $700 million profit. I don't know. I'm having a hard time still connecting all the dots. John says, I can see Gino having a better year. Then could you see him sticking around a bit longer? All right, I need y'all to use punctuation here. I'm reading these live off the cuff. Yeah, listen, I think if Malkin had wingers who produced last year, look at the difference in Evgeny Malkin when he had McGroarty, Koivunen, Rust, some combination thereof, playing on his wings. Look at how much better he was when the guys were scoring versus when he was playing with Blake Lizotte, Kevin Hayes, Philip Tomasino, Cody Glass. Who am I missing? He really had just a cavalcade of guys who had no finishing ability. Even Tomasino, who has ability, was a -13 in terms of scoring chances and expected goals. The stats on Money Puck. Tomasino was way in the red. He wasn't finishing his chances. And that, that's sort of all part of it. And Malkin is even at 38, almost 39 years old, right? He's still affected by all of that. Evgeny Malkin is not yet an old man, even if his birth certificate says he's really old by hockey standards. Let's see here. Let's go to Michael Thompson. Michael's late checking in today. If this isn't Gino's last year, how much would you give him a year for the next contract? Oh, I don't think you'd. Well, let's get through this year first. If he looks good and puts up similar numbers, you probably give him a similar contract. Give him another 1 year, $6 or $7 million deal, maybe $7.1 million. How's that? The rotten egg. Is it odd that I hope Kyle Dubas gives Toronto the finger in any possible trade deals, or at least screws them in a deal? I don't think that's wrong. I think every fan wants their GM to win the trade. By the way, side note, guys, one of the rumor rags, I saw this last week, and I just sort of shook my head. They're like, well, that rancor between Kyle Dubas and Toronto was kind of overblown. This is business. And I'm like, they've already made one trade. They've talked about others. And that's how I knew the writer was getting really bum information and really didn't understand what he was writing. Because Dubas and Trey Living actually have a good relationship. Also, Brendan Shanahan got fired. So the people who gave Dubas a rough time are no longer there. He's got a good relationship with Trey Living. I mean, Trey Living gave him Connor Timmins and Connor Dewar for a 5th-round pick, which Dubas then used Timmins to get Connor Clifton and a 2nd-round pick. So think about that math here. This is all from, basically a gift from Toronto. Toronto gives 2 players for a 5th-round pick. Dubas keeps 1 player, Connor Dewar, trades Connor Timmins for a like defenseman. Connor Clifton is going to add, 3rd-pairing grit or so, and a 2nd-round pick. Now, if you trade Connor Clifton, because he's playing well, now you have all these assets from that 1 5th-round pick that Toronto basically bestowed upon you. So you can hate Toronto all you want. I mean, there's plenty of Canadians who agree with you. Let's go to Lars here. I should wrap this up too. It's been an hour 10. But I see the numbers are growing still. What are you people are nuts? You watch this. Honest to God. Dan, if the Penguins get a top 5 pick next year and keep the large amount of cap space next summer, wouldn't they be positioned to make the playoffs after next year's draft and free agency? Probably be competitive for the playoffs, but maybe not a playoff team. I mean, Lars, I think you're probably thinking of the Penguins in a vacuum, not of the Penguins in the big picture. Because just think about, you're talking about the 27-28 year. Actually, no, you're talking about 26-27. Florida, Toronto, Ottawa, Montreal, New Jersey. Let's assume the Rangers haven't fallen into the abyss. That's 6 teams. Philadelphia is probably still a little bit ahead of the Penguins. That's 7. The Islanders, that's 8. The Capitals, there's 9 good teams. Columbus hasn't thrown in the towel. That's 10. Detroit is already knocking on the door. That's 11. So could the Penguins make the playoffs? I'd say probably not. Very unlikely. But if they do get a top 5 pick in 26 and they hit on it, 27-28 is when you really start to judge everything going on right now. That's when Malkin is done. Letang will have 1 more year on his contract. Will he finish it or not? I don't know. He might be gone, right? Tristan Jarry, Erik Karlsson. You're going to essentially have broomed the roster by that point. And you're going to have, you might not even have Sidney Crosby, to be honest. But let's just say Sid looks around and says, look at these kids. This is awesome. 1 more year or 1 more go at it. So you're going to Crosby, Koivunen, McCrory, Bros, Pickering, Kindle, Zonin, Horkoff. And that's, not counting whoever else might be on the way that we haven't taken into account. So yeah, it could get fun, but 27-28 is the year that's going to get fun in that regard. JR is laughing about my Seattle hotel. So the best 15 minutes of my life. I tell you what, I walked in, there was a hooker outside that hotel. And I said, or actually, she said to me, oh, are you staying here? And I said, yes. She's like, oh, let's go back to my place. I did all these jokes 2 years ago on Twitter. I did the whole Dangerfield routine, or at least the Dangerfield-esque routine. That hotel was so bad. So bad. Oh, my. But there were no bed bugs. I did look. And I kept all of my stuff literally like in the bathroom on the sink, like the porcelain where I knew no bugs were. And I did sleep in a chair. I think I slept for like a few hours, shifted around a few times. And then I had like an 8 or 9 a.m. flight back home. I went to the airport at like 4 a.m. I'm like, to hell with it. And I went to the airport. I sat in a cafe, drank some coffee, got, another hour or 2 of sleep in one of those airport chairs. That's really the only place that was terrible. Well, there was... no, Washington was my fault. I'm trying to think of any other really bad cities and hotels. I've had some sketch in New York, but the room was at least clean. Let's see here. Jim says, if Jarry is traded, will Dubas sign Jack Johnson to give the fans a familiar whipping? Boy, nice call, Jim. Nice call. I'm going to run down to the bottom, to the end here, and finish up some questions. Let's get to Michael Parker. Wasted years are coming soon for the Pittsburgh Penguins. It sucks. I don't know, wasted. You're all going to have to adjust your frame of reference and your rooting. You're now rooting for Rutger McGroarty and Ville Koivunen to play well. You're rooting for Owen Pickering to take that final step and entrench himself in the NHL lineup. Maybe you're rooting for Tristan Jarry to look good. Maybe you're rooting for Sergei Murashov to come barging in. But you're rooting for the players at this point. It's very much almost like a minor league setup. The one thing I will definitely caution you all on, do not get so emotionally attached to a singular player that you lose the forest from the trees. I mean, Penguins fans, let's be honest, you're kind of good at that. You're really good at fixating on one player. Let's go for the hat trick. I'll mention Jesse Puljujärvi a third time in one show, where you get fixated on him or Daniel Sprong or some of these other guys. I'm trying to think. Valtteri Puustinen that the social media intelligentsia just assumed was a Hall of Famer if only Mike Sullivan would play the young players. Don't get so fixated on one that you miss another on the way. That makes sense? Enjoy it all. You'll have your favorites. Look, I have my favorites already. There's already a few guys I really enjoy talking to, and I hope that they, continue and progress along so that I can have a long professional relationship where I can walk into the room and say, hey, what happened? And they'll tell me. That's fun for me. And actually, it's fun for you because you find out things that you otherwise wouldn't get to find out, because I get to find out those things. And they're also just fun to talk to in those situations. So, but by the same token, if any of them are traded tomorrow, I'm like, oh, darn. Okay, who's next? Let's see here. Michael, what do you think the chances are Cookie and Lizotte make the opening night roster? Blake Lizotte is 26, 27. Don't forget, remember how good Blake Lizotte was. Under the radar completely, but he made the difference. When he was in the lineup from October through January, the Penguins had a not just a winning record, but a significantly disproportionate winning record with him in the lineup. So that speed, the tenacity, you want that sort of truculence and pugnacious player in your lineup. I do worry that Noel Acciari has hit the expiration date. I mean, that guy has done a lot. He's blocked a lot of shots, thrown a lot of hits. He has been a warrior. I think there's a legitimate chance he's not in the opening night lineup. I mean, that's not a knock on Noel Acciari. That's a knock on him turning 34 soon. That's a knock on what a Tasmanian devil he's been. I mean, he's given it all. But eventually those guys don't have much left to give. Let's go to Jake Bacon. Hey, Dan, between Rakell and Rust, who do you think is more likely to get traded? Rickard, Rakell. Michael Perry says, what's this? Breaking news? Is this all true? Is McDavid signing a 7-year, $142 million extension? Good gosh, that's what? No. Can you really sign for 21? No, that's Michael. I think you're fooling with us, right? Can't sign for $21 million. Is that 21? Yeah, no, not quite 21 million. A little less than 21. Really? No. I'll have to check Twitter. So Jarry to Edmonton is a big rumor. John Powell writes, hope it happens. Both sides need to move on once and for all. You probably heard me talking about the goalies a little bit earlier, John. So I'm not going to swing back through all that. Listen, kids, I can't believe this many people showed up for another live chat. So I will do them again next week. I'll do it again next Wednesday. And let's see here. This is the weird watch I was wearing today. It's a Hamilton Jazzmaster. Watch guys stop me with it like everywhere. I'm like, this thing. And I got it on the cheap at an outlet store in Vegas, of all places. So there's your daily wrist check. All right, kids. It's been a blast. It's been real. It's been fun, but not real fun. I kid. Have fun.